Someone found one of my reels a few weeks ago. They scrolled past it. The next day, another one showed up in their feed. They paid a little more attention that time. Then a friend shared one and said, "Listen to this, Grandpa." By the time they finally reached out, God had already been working on them for a few days. They just didn't know it yet. And when we talked, really talked, I realized something. That's not how the algorithm works. That's how God works. And I've been thinking about that ever since. I've been posting on Instagram for a while now, every day, sometimes twice a day. Short videos, 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Just me talking about faith and patience and trusting God when things feel slow. And I'll be honest with you, for a long time I wondered if any of it was landing anywhere real. The numbers tell you some things, views, saves, shares. I watch all of that. But numbers don't tell you if something actually reached anybody. Then this happened. Someone found one of my reels. Didn't stop for it, just kept scrolling. Then the next day, another one showed up. This time they paused, listened a little closer. Then a friend of theirs shared one and said, "Listen to this, Grandpa." Three separate touches, three separate moments. And by the time they reached out, by the time they actually sent a message, God had already been preparing that conversation for days. We ended up talking for a good long while. And what they asked me, the question they led with, told me everything about where they were. It wasn't a small question. It was the kind of question somebody only asks when they're standing at a real edge and need to know if it's survivable. I've been a pastor for a long time. I know that question when I hear it. And I thought this didn't start with a reel. This started long before that. The reel was just the door God chose to use. Maybe you know what I mean. Maybe something has been finding you lately. A song, a verse, a conversation you didn't expect. Something that keeps showing up until you finally stop and pay attention. That's not coincidence. I want to talk about the way that God moves because I think we misunderstand it. We tend to think of God working in big moments. The burning bush, the road to Damascus, the dramatic turn, and those things happen. I'm not saying they don't. But in my 77 years, most of what I've seen God do has been quiet, gradual, almost invisible until you look back at it. He doesn't always announce himself. Sometimes he just keeps showing up until you notice. That's what happened with this person. Three reels, three moments where something nudged them a little closer, and they didn't even realize until after the conversation that God had been orchestrating the whole thing. I think about the story of Elijah in the wilderness, worn out, discouraged, ready to quit. And God didn't come in the wind, didn't come in the earthquake, didn't come in the fire. He came in a still, small voice, the quietest thing in the whole scene. That's how he often works. And here's what I want you to understand, especially if you're in a season where you can feel like nothing is happening. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean there isn't any. God may be doing something right now in the background of your life that you won't recognize for weeks, maybe months. Maybe not until you look back on it from the other side. He was working on that young person before the first reel ever played. He was arranging the friend who would share it. He was timing the conversation that followed. None of that was accidental. And here's the thing that gets me. A 30-second video made by a 77-year-old in Arkansas found somebody in California who needed it. Crossed every boundary that should have made that impossible. Different age, different state, different generation, different everything. That's not reach, that's sovereignty. I'm not saying that to talk about myself. I'm saying it because if God can use something that small in the hands of somebody that ordinary to find somebody who needed it that much, then nothing is too small for him to use. Not your quiet faithfulness, not your ordinary days, not the thing you're doing right now that feels like it isn't reaching anybody. You don't always get to see what your faithfulness is doing, but that doesn't mean it isn't doing anything. I've kept bees for 15 years, and one thing that I've learned about bees is that they don't know what they're building toward. They just do the next thing. They cap the next cell. They tend the next larva. They fly the next run. And somehow, out of all of that quiet, faithful work, a whole hive gets built. They don't see the hive, they just do the work. Sometimes faithfulness looks like that. I've been doing this long enough now to know that I can't always tell which posts are going to land somewhere real. Some of the ones that look small on the outside are the ones that God is using the most quietly. And some of what looks like silence on my end is actually preparation on his end. That conversation I had, that long, unexpected phone call, reminded me of something I think I knew, but I needed to hear it again. The work is worth doing even when you can't see what it's doing. God doesn't waste faithful effort. He files it away and uses it at exactly the right moment. And that moment is usually not the one we would pick. It's always the right one. If you're in a season where you feel like your faithfulness isn't reaching anybody, I just want to tell you, keep going. You don't know who's on the other end of the thing you're doing quietly and steadily. You don't know what's being prepared while you wait. Just keep showing up. If something in this video hits something real for you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. What's been finding you lately that you didn't expect? And if you want a quieter place to keep the conversation going, I've got a small community called The Next Step. The link's in the description. There's no pressure, just where conversations belong. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one. And before I sign off, please like and subscribe to the channel if it helps you at all, okay? Thank you.